everyone, welcome to another episode of BFF, a show where two best friends review movies because fan friction. We're your hosts. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Joe.
And this is our last episode of the December backlog of Ashley's Choice.
Yep. Today we are doing Terminator 2, A Judgment Day.
Yes, and this is a movie that, even though I hadn't seen it before the fan friction, I feel like I knew all of the stuff about it.
It's
an
American icon kind of thing.
Despite it starring Austrian. But,
hey,
whatever.
Who was one of the greatest American action stars of the 80s.
That's true. So it doesn't matter where you come from. We're all Americans now, right?
Yeah, there it is.
But yeah, I remember all of the toys for this, the commercials, all of the iconic lines, like "Hasta la vista, baby." Like, that was, like, the catchphrase at the playground at my school. I don't know about yours.
We went to the same district, so that's pretty universal.
Yeah. And then, I'll be back.
Well, that was more from the first one.
Okay, but
they brought it back in the second one.
Okay.
But the one that I always remembered is "Come with me if you want to live."
That's a good Arnold impression. And, of course, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's inspired, like, that character, and just his acting career is inspired, like, so many, like, I guess we would call them memes now, but, like, pop culture references, like McBain from The Simpsons.
Is pretty much their Arnold.
Yeah, and it encompasses a lot of other 80s and 90s action movie tropes.
But the primary blueprint of McBain, like the primary design ethic is pretty much, from the look.
Yeah.
The only difference is, like, Arnold's not nearly as blonde as McBain.
Yeah, and Rainier Wolfcastle. It's very much a play on that character.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely one of those, R-rated action movies that was marketed to children with all of the toys, kind of like Alien and Aliens. I guess more so Aliens than Alien.
I would throw this out, though, that of all the R-rated action movies of the time, Terminator 2 is probably the most kid-friendly. It's still super violent. It's lots of gore.
It's not RoboCop where they're shooting people in an inappropriate place.
Part of the concept of Terminator 2, not the first one. The first one's just whatever. But part of the concept of Terminator 2 is, like, it's a father figure story. Like, John doesn't really have a dad, and the Terminator kind of weirdly fills that role.
All right, we're gonna pause real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll talk all things T2.
Yep. Judgment
Day. And we're back.
Movie's still fantastic. That's my fourth time seeing it.
Definitely enjoyed it a lot better the second time. The first time I wasn't paying too close attention to it because I was trying to, prepare for my argument and, look up a bunch of other stuff. So I was not as engaged the first time. So definitely enjoyed it a lot this time because it was actually, really focused, and just, this is such a fun movie.
Oh yeah, it follows a really good pacing method that I don't think action movies nowadays do, where there's a lot of action, but they can squeeze the exposition in there in such a way that you're still interested.
So, the movie starts off with this, narration from Sarah Connor, and I'm guessing it's to kind of bring you back to what happened in the first movie, and then also if you've never seen the first movie so that you're not confused.
Yeah, considering this movie, there's an 8-year gap between the two movies, when they were released, or a 6-year or something.
It was a significant gap. So, and then you have to remember there wasn't streaming back in 1991 when this was released, so they kind of had to set up sequels to kind of stand on their own, but, also connect back to the previous story, but not where they're going to leave out a new audience, because I think that's just kind of how filmmaking worked in general back then. What I really loved about this movie was the narrative setup, which I know that they ruined in the trailers for the movie, where it's definitely set up where you think that the T-800, Arnold's character,
is being
the Terminator, you think that he's come back to kill John Connor again, and the narrative sets you up for when Sarah Connor sees him when they go to the mental institution, that, naturally, she's going to obviously think, he is the bad guy.
Yep.
And then it's actually even better set up when the T-800 and the T-1000 show up at the Galleria arcade coming after John Connor. Like, you don't know, like, who's good and who's bad. I mean, you can kind of get the sense that the T-1000 is bad because, like, it killed that cop to, like, take him over.
Yeah.
But you don't know that the, T-800 is a good character, so you could just think that, two's better than one, they're sending them both back.
Yep.
And then when he, tells him, like, get down or whatever he said, and it's like, oh, now he's good. And I know they ruined that in the trailer because I watched it recently just to double check.
Yeah. But that's also kind of the nature of it. Like, how are you going to make a sequel that's basically the same thing over again?
Yeah, you have to up the ante, and now he's a good character, and just the relationship building between him and John Connor, who doesn't have a father. His mom's locked up in this institution. His foster parents they're definitely characterized to where
how did they get into being his foster parents?
Yeah, like, how are these two individuals foster parents? Because they don't seem to be doing, like, a great job, but
they don't seem to care.
That too, and well, definitely the kind of kid that, John Connor is, where he's, like, scamming ATMs, and he definitely seems like he would be a hard kid to discipline and to deal with, but, you need someone that's got, like, a big loving heart to, like, take care of a kid like that whose, mom is, for all he knows, is totally, a mental case. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't know that, like, all of this Terminator stuff is actually real until the T-800 shows up. And then it's like, oh, she wasn't just insane. Yep. And then, like, when she's in the hospital, how they treat her, and
that's pretty indicative of, like, how the mental health system is treated in movies. Mm-hmm. Like, think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Nurse Ratched.
Yeah, just in general, like, if it's every depiction of Arkham Asylum in anything Batman ever. It's not even just movies, it's TV. It's like at least one of the people that work there is corrupt or terrible. Yeah,
especially when, like, I guess she's sedated, or she's pretending to be sedated or catatonic, and the guy licks her face. Yeah. It's like, oh my god. And then he gets his comeuppance later, but, like, oh.
Still.
You know that she's
just like, oh, I'm going after you.
Yes, you're dead.
Chances are good. The time we see it in the movie isn't even the first time something like that's happened.
Of course.
I think that's the implication, is that's a pretty common occurrence to her. But that's the thing, though. Like, there's a lot of stuff in this movie. And going real quick to Arnold being the hero of the piece. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen it. The T-800, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, is a heroic incarnation, which is basically how it was from here on out in those movies. Like, every Terminator that came out afterwards, if Arnold was in it, he was the good guy. The thing is, when the first one came out, he was such a new action actor because he was so young. Mm-hmm. So he would take different roles and things like that. So him playing the villain in the first one just made him awesome. But by the time Terminator 2 came out, he was a huge action star. He's not going to play a villain anymore.
Yeah.
So
that makes total sense, but also it kind of makes it like a cool narratively where, like, you have this villain and now you have him coming back and now he's a hero. What I found really striking in the movie were the visuals, particularly Robert Patrick as the T-1000 and all of the liquid metal.
Oh god, it stands up so well.
Yes, I mean, it looked like it was, rendered like this year, like, instead of in 1991.
You can tell it is outdated. Like, you can see it, but it's that kind of outdated that you're still looking at it going, that still looks good.
Yeah, it doesn't have that kind of weird, like, uncanny valley to me where it's like, oh, this looks really bad. It just looks
like, you could tell it's fake, but it still looks good.
Yes.
It doesn't offend the senses.
Yeah, it doesn't look so out of place like some other, like, if you spent less money on the visuals from that time period, how, like, those are not going to hold up as well. And there were some visuals that kind of stood out to me, like when they have the, like, little black hole kind of thing where they transform in. That looked kind of bad. But all of the liquid metal stuff looked really awesome, and especially, like, when he goes through the prison bars.
Yes.
That looked really cool when he was the floor. And just Robert Patrick himself, like, that was a brilliant casting choice.
Yeah.
I like how they have the T-800, like, he's big and he's bulky and, he can't do all these cool things. And then you have the T-1000, who's a lot slimmer, and he has all these really cool features. So I thought that difference between, Arnold and Robert Patrick was a very smart casting choice, because with technology,
things get smaller and more compact.
Yeah, usually. Either way, I thought that was really a cool stylistic choice. Like, okay, we got this big, bulky, bodybuilder. Well, now our new model needs to be, a slimmer one.
Yeah. Which he could technically be bigger if he wanted. That's the beauty of T-1000.
Because,
the liquid metal
the
construct,
liquid metal.
Which makes zero sense, but whatever.
Yeah. When he's frozen in the liquid nitrogen, like, that was so memed in, like, every, like, pop culture from that time period. But it looked really good.
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, cool, he's broken. Wait, no, he's going to unfreeze, and the little pool's coming back together.
Super awesome. That's the thing, like, the first Terminator was this terrifying movie because it was these two humans against this unstoppable killing machine. And in Terminator 2, when Arnold is one of their allies, you're like, well, they have an unstoppable killing machine. Well, the killing machine that's tracking them is even more unstoppable than him. Because, like, the liquid nitrogen and shattering him would have stopped the Arnold Terminator, the T-800.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It won't stop the T-1000. That's, like, nothing.
Yeah. Another really cool visual that I remember from the movie is, like, the reflection off of the T-1000's aviator sunglasses. Like, you see, like, the fire.
Yeah.
That just looks so awesome.
Yep. There's the visuals in this movie in general are really good. Just from the get-go. Whenever it's going through the opening credits and it's that playground and the fire's wrapped around it, it's just this beautiful, like, it's depressing, but it's beautiful. It's like set pieces and everything about it, and the music's playing, and it's just this gorgeous design. There's only one part of this movie where I saw some of the visual effects and I thought they were really kind of bad. One part, and it's when she's having the flashback or the dream, the nightmare of the bomb going off, and you see the blast wave taking out buildings and stuff. It flips a bus. And the bus looks so much like a toy.
Aww.
It just, I noticed, I'm like, oh, that's sad. But it's one little thing that I'm like, it's a very obvious visual effect.
Another great visual was the iconic LA Reservoir River.
The truck chase.
Yeah, the truck chase, and then Arnold doing the really cool flip with the rifle, and or I guess it was a sawed-off shotgun. I don't remember. I'm not good. I'm not good with weapons. Visually stunning, but also it wasn't so, like, some filmmakers can get carried away with, like, it needs to look graphically beautiful and then they forget the script and the story. This was definitely not the case. The story is really well told. It's paced very well, even in the director's cut. And by the time we get to that iconic scene where he's like, I cannot stay, I have to go as well, like, because of the chip. And he's like, I need you to lower me into the molten steel.
He says he can't terminate himself, so
yes.
I need you to lower me.
And, like, poor little John Connor, because that's the only father figure he's ever known, is this soulless machine.
Yeah.
And he's crying, and he does, like, the thumbs up as he's being lowered down. It's like...
The first time I saw this movie, I was, like, 10, and I cried so much. I was just like...
Aww.
So.
But it is so sad because you get to see the relationship build between these two characters, and you do get to see the T-800 actually start to learn things from John about, like, when he tries to start the car. It's like, the keys are usually up here, check first, and he does that later on. It's like, oh, he's learning, and like, why do you cry? And because he got mad, his mom yelled at him, and he doesn't get it, but he's like, now I know.
Yep.
Now I know why you cry.
But it's something I can never do. This is one of those handful of R-rated action films that had market targeting towards kids that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, RoboCop having toys for kids didn't make as much sense as Terminator 2 Judgment Day having toys for kids.
Yeah, because there is a kid in the movie. He's an integral character. And then really the violence, it's not that bad.
It is incredibly violent, and there is a high body count, but it's not like there's like very visceral gore or.
And I don't remember them saying too many things, like maybe like a couple of bad words here and there, but nothing gratuitous.
No, nothing that would merit an R rating nowadays.
Exactly. So, yeah, it definitely makes sense why the movie would be marketed to children.
Yep.
But overall, really good movie, strong story, strong visuals. Usually you don't get both of them in these kind of action movies, and a heartfelt story.
Yep.
Definitely set the bar for the franchise, and
kind of set the bar for R-rated action movies.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really lived. The sequels, obviously, from the way people talk about them, have not really lived up to this movie. All right, why don't we go ahead and rate the movie? Would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to rate it a 10 out of 10. It's one of those movies that's a near perfect masterpiece. It's quotable, it's fun, it has heart, it's well written. All the actors give their all. It's a good movie. I mean, there's a reason it's still the best of the franchise.
All right, fair enough. I think I'm going to go 9 out of 10 just because it was a very great story, good visuals, but just to me, it wasn't like a perfect movie. There were a few flaws here and there, but still really great, very fun and enjoyable. Just not. There's other movies I like better, so
this is one of the handful of times that I'm like easier on the rating than you.
Probably.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Not enough to give it 10 out of 10. All right, well, we're going to go review that fan friction footage, which I feel like we don't even need to do it because I remember that episode really well. I don't even think I said anything about the movie.
Or you said very little.
Yeah, it was very hard for me to get a word in on that episode. So
that was a very intense episode.
It was intense, yes.
So, yes. But we'll be back in a little while.
All right. And we're back.
Yep.
That was not as bad as I remembered it. I think the rest of the fight kind of went downhill for me, though.
Well, in general, there's a lot of very strong personalities talking.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Sasha and Jacqueline are excellent fighters. I kind of knew going in that it's like, if I even make it to the speed round, it'll be a miracle, because both of those ladies are just truly strong fighters, very knowledgeable and passionate. So I felt definitely like the underdog, even though we've been on the show several times.
Yeah.
We had previously met Jacqueline in Austin at
South by Southwest.
Yes, and I already knew from there, from the little we played the movie fights game at the little get together, and I knew she was fierce then. So, then Sasha. I mean, it's Sasha.
Your admiration knows no bounds, dear.
Yes, I love both of them very much.
So the question in round 1 of this particular fight was, born on the 4th of July, what is the best summer movie released on an Independence Day weekend?
And Jack had provided us a list of movies to help us narrow it down. So I, of course, chose Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Sasha chose Apollo 13. And Jacqueline chose Back to the Future, which was actually what I wanted to fight for.
Yep.
And so, I guess through coin toss or whatever Jack does.
The mysterious methods Jack does to break ties like that. So
she got Back to the Future, I got T2, and then at the end of the fight, I found out that T2 was her second choice as well. So, at least I picked something good. Like, why I went with that versus other 4th of July releases, probably maybe to do with the fact that it had like a good rating online. It's considered a good movie. Like, it's hard to argue against a movie like Terminator 2. And especially knowing the two styles of the fighters, or knowing that they had a depth of knowledge of film that, I didn't necessarily have. I didn't want to go for something like a low-hanging fruit of Independence Day, which is what probably came into my mind first when we got the questions. So, and I was really kind of like hoping nobody else would choose Back to the Future. So T2 is really just like, if that happens, that won't happen. Yeah, and then it happened. And then it happened. I'm like, well, I got to go for it, so I'm going to do my best.
You did good, I think.
So I had said that it was better than the original.
Which is true.
And that the original had come out in 1984, so that it had been like a while. Very action-packed, fun movie. And
all true points.
All true things. But then after that, it was kind of like, I'm going to let Jacqueline and Sasha fight. I'm just going to sit here and maybe eventually I will get to say some more things.
Well, and, they're tearing each other's arguments down. Not necessarily going after you as much as they're going after each other.
So some of the other things that they had said, and not really like necessarily counter argument to mine, but I was kind of going for it was a fun, action-packed film, better than the original. It had great special effects that still hold up.
Yep.
And then with these kind of questions, they're so open-ended, so you can kind of define like what like a summer movie, a 4th of July movie means to you. And so for me, it's action-packed and fun. For Jacqueline, she talked about fun and family and pulling you away from, like all the fun things that you can do on the 4th of July, like go to the beach, have, some beverages with some friends. And then for Sasha, it was more about like kind of like the family aspect that Jacqueline talked about, but also like fun and action packed. So it was kind of like a combination of both of our arguments. And she really sold on the patriotism element as well, because Apollo 13, is about an iconic moment in American history.
A big moment. Showed like our ingenuity and our capability to fix problems.
The argument I had against Apollo 13, and I really do feel this way, it takes a long time for anything like impactful to happen. It's a lot of exposition and setting up, which she talked about it being more characterization. But to me, it was just like, when's bad things happening?
Well, and they could have focused on different things, I felt, with that movie, other than just like the astronauts talking with their families and stuff.
They were trying to establish that like the space program at that time, going to the moon had become like blasé. Oh, we've done that so many times now, which is true. The novelty of that idea had fallen away. And like I talked about in the argument, like my mom worked for the space program, she was a contractor, so she worked on missions, and sometimes things could get boring and could get routine, but then when tragedy like that strikes, it kind of reminds people of, how scary it is to send, our men and women up into space, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we've had several tragedies since, the Apollo mission, so.
Yep.
Sasha at one point had tried to help me out by saying that the Terminator franchise was better than the Back to the Future franchise. I'm not so sure if that's necessarily true, given what I've heard about the other Terminator films. And
I would almost argue that maybe Terminator 2 is better than Back to the Future. I would agree to that argument potentially, because I think it's just in general a slightly tighter movie. However, that's kind of the thing to me, is Back to the Future as an individual movie is not as good as its whole franchise. When you put all three pieces of the puzzle together, it's a fantastic trip, the whole thing. And the first one is good. I'm not going to say it's not. I'm never going to pretend it's not. But see, Back to the Future 2 is my preferred movie of those three. And
I like the first one the best.
See, lots of people do. I'm not as big of a fan. For me, Back to the Future, like I said, isn't as strong as the whole series, while Terminator 2 Judgment Day is just a beautiful movie. I rated it 10 out of 10 because to me it is a perfect movie.
And some of the other things that Jacqueline tried to use against me was the fact that, going back on Sasha's point that, those other Terminator films are not as great. And I was like, you can't count those. Those are from a different director. And she was like, you can't make up rules. I'm like, I can make up any rules I want to. I'm a teacher. Just desperately trying to, counteract someone's point. Because, she does have a point. You have to kind of, it doesn't matter who made the film. It's still considered in the franchise. I can say all day, no, we're not going to count those. Those are not real, but they have,
Like to all the Star Wars fans that are like, Phantom Menace never happened. No, it
did
freaking
happen. Yeah.
It totally happened.
But yeah, definitely more of a comedy thing than a... Yeah, not like a real argument, obviously, and I don't think that swayed the argument in any way. And I talked about how, it makes you, sad But I stole that from you when you told me that you had cried.
I did.
And I was like, totally.
First couple times I saw that movie, that scene makes me cry every time.
Yeah, it is very heartfelt. And I had tried to argue the family aspect of the movie, and they're like, but that's a dysfunctional family. I'm like, there's a lot of families in America that are dysfunctional.
It's almost like you should argue. Are you saying they shouldn't be represented?
Well,
the dysfunctional families of America shouldn't be represented?
Well, I countered that with, and I was pretty proud of myself, that, like, Marty's family is dysfunctional too until he goes back and changes everything. So
and one might argue it's still dysfunctional. We're just seeing it through the unreliable narrator of Marty's personal opinion.
Yeah. It's true. So yeah, I was proud that I was able to come back with that, because sometimes I'm not very good at coming back with those things very quickly. I'm not a good counter-arguer, unlike you. But yeah, it was a lot of back and forth about like what a summer movie means to everybody. And again, Jacqueline talked about the family aspect. Sasha was going for the like Americana aspect. I was going for the fun aspect, but then I really didn't talk about like how fun the movie was. And that was probably the downfall of my argument. As Jack was doing his summation of everyone, I was the one that was kicked out first, and it was really between Jacqueline and Sasha.
Yep.
And I thought they both did a great job arguing their point, and from that point on, it was like I have got the world against me, or not really the world against me, but like I have my work cut out for me, because when you're going up against really tough fighters, because some people will be like, very accepting, like, oh, you said that, I'll take your word for it. And then they don't fight that way. They're like, no, like, we're going to call you out on what you said. Like, that's not real. You can't make up stuff. So
it's fair.
So it's just all about learning like fighting styles. And
All right, so we're ranking
my choice,
your choice to this question. And the question again, just in case you forgot from the beginning of when we started talking about it, this segment, is what is the best summer movie released on Independence Day? And I'm gonna rank your choice as probably an 8. It's to me the very definition of a solid blockbuster movie, a summer blockbuster movie, which 4th of July weekend falls on that category.
Yeah.
But I just like. And I'm not even saying that their choices were necessarily better than yours, but like, if Independence Day came out on July the 4th, I probably would have gone for that, because the day's in the title.
Yeah. I'm going to rate myself a 7 out of 10 just for that reason. I think in hindsight, I might have had an easier time arguing for Independence Day, even though it's definitely the low-hanging fruit, because you can say things like, it's got Independence Day in the title. It's about family. It's about patriotism. It's about coming together, and not just America, but the whole world.
Standing up against oppression and tyranny and all sorts of stuff.
So yeah.
Stopping an invading force from taking away our freedoms, our right to freaking live.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely something that would have been way easier to argue, because I've seen Independence Day dozens of times. I really enjoy that movie a lot. So, but that speech, that monologue,
me giving it an 8 also takes into account that if we had done Independence Day, then we wouldn't be having this episode.
That's true.
Because we'd both seen it a lot.
Yeah. So.
But yeah.
But this is not the only time that Terminator 2 has shown up in a fan fiction. There is the action movie Anatomy episode. Terminator 2 is also in one of the rounds.
Well, it's a great action movie.
Yeah.
Let's go to Twitter. We asked you BFF pals of ours, what is your favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie?
And so we didn't limit it to just action roles, anything that he's been in.
Billy Pollahan at B Buster Bill says Commando and Running Man are personal favorites. I grew up with Commando and love Running Man. You can see our BFF episode over Running Man.
Yes. I also really enjoy Running Man, and I've never seen Commando.
I mean, it's a pretty standard action movie with lots of great scenes.
Stephen Malevsky at Stephen Malevsky, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, that his favorites were Conan the Barbarian or Predator.
Predator is literally the first movie I ever remember seeing. It is the earliest movie in my memory. I think that explains a lot.
Probably.
And Conan's one of my favorite.
I've seen neither of them, so.
Jeez.
My action movies are limited. Even though I love action movies, I haven't seen all of them.
It's fair. It's fair. Raul Rodriguez Vader at Raul. I always mess up your Twitter handle, Raul.
We know it's Raul.
We know who you are. And it's going to be on screen. So
yeah, we only know one Raul.
True Lies was his throw. It's a really, really fun movie. I personally wouldn't find it to be his best, but it's a great movie.
I think I've seen True Lies. I know I've seen the parodied versions, like on The Critic when it's his dad acting like Jamie Lee Curtis. Travis Wachowski said Terminator 2, and then he said, said it first.
It's what this episode's over.
Yeah.
It's hard to deny that maybe, like, even though he had a lot of great movies before, Terminator 2 is probably, like, the pinnacle of his action movie life.
Yeah.
Eric Monroe also said Terminator 2.
As did Ryan from the Ohio Review. Yep. So lots of love for T2.
Like I said, it's probably the highest point of his action movie career. Delisha Russell at Delisha_Renee said, as a kid, it was Jingle All the Way. I could see that.
Tom Zambino at Road Raider 3 said aside from T2, his favorite was Commando.
Yep. Severin Valerie at Cellarwana says True Lies, also good. I'm noticing a pattern.
TJ Dex at TJ Dex said, I'm in the minority here, but Last Action Hero for me.
Yep, I can agree that you're in the minority there. The premise is not a bad movie because it's very meta, and if anything this year has taught us, meta movies can be pretty fun.
I love meta humor, so that's definitely one that I remember when it came out, but we never went to go see for whatever reason.
I love meta magic.
Really? With a meta magic again?
But yes, no, meta humor is some of my favorite. And Last Action Hero pokes fun at it, not only from Arnold's point of view, but I want to say it was like they had a poster for Sly Stallone as the Terminator.
Okay, I think I remember hearing about that.
Yep. Bill Cariola at Coupe de Bill, Terminator 2 all day. Also enjoyed Last Action Hero. Apparently, Jack also likes Last Action Hero. Jack's ultimate choice, though, apparently is Predator.
All right, so what's your favorite Arnold role?
I'm probably gonna go with one that I've only seen a handful of times, and it's been 15, 20 years since I have seen it. With Red Heat, where he and Jim Belushi are cops, but Arnold plays a cop from Russia who's like on some weird exchange program. I don't remember the premise.
Oh, the 80s. They always had weird premises for things. Yeah, the police exchange program.
Yeah, so Ivan, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, is in an American city that I can't remember, and him and Jim Belushi have to deal with the whole like fish out of water concept, and like maybe Ivan's way of doing police work is good sometimes. Maybe it's the cop movie equivalent of like Rocky IV. Where at the end they're like, maybe we're not so different after all.
The only thing I could think of like fish out of water story from the 80s off the top of my head is like Trading Spaces. With Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
And then also Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, where he's trying to pretend not to be a prince of a nation.
Yep.
And, yeah.
Yep. What about yours?
Hands down, my favorite, and it's the one that we've watched for the show. We talked about it already. Was The Running Man. Just from the moment that movie started, I was hooked. And normally, I'm not like a huge Schwarzenegger fan. But I do enjoy a lot of his movies. That's definitely my favorite of his action roles. And then my favorite is like comedy roles has to be Kindergarten Cop. Because again, it's like a fish out of water story. He wasn't supposed to even be the one that was undercover in the school. It was supposed to be his partner. And to see like this big burly Austrian man try to deal with these little kids.
The muscles from fossils.
It's so adorable because he doesn't know how to, handle them, and it's like he's learning, along with them, and it's actually, not like a terrible teacher. Anyway, so that's about all from us.
Yeah.
December's backlog is officially done, but December has one more Sunday in it.
It does. And we're going to have something very special for you for that Sunday.
Yes.
Thank you for being here with us.
Yes, we really appreciate all of you guys that tweet at us and respond and like our videos.
And share them.
And share them. All those things, really help us out. We do this because
it's fun.
It's fun, and we love movies, and we love talking about things and talking about them together.
Yep.
If you'd like to talk to us, you can follow us both on Twitter. I'm at @that_Mrs. Davis.
And I'm at Drake Masters.
And that's it. Bye!
So the question in round 1 of this particular fight was, born on the 4th of July, what is the best summer movie released on an Independence Day weekend?
And Jack had provided us a list of movies to help us narrow it down. So I have chores. Really?
Chores.
Charky. Daryl the pony. Great pony.